Amherst, Nova Scotia. A quiet town, a dark secret. This is where Esther Cox lived. Her story is not for the faint of heart. Esther was young when the nightmare began. She had already faced hardship. Family troubles haunted her. Little did she know, something more sinister awaited. The year was 1878. Esther was just 18. This is when the haunting started. The Cox family home became a place of terror. It started subtly. Knocks, taps, unexplained noises in the night. The Cox family at first dismissed them. Just an old house settling, they thought. They were wrong. The sounds grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to follow Esther. Where she went, the noises went too. Fear began to creep in. Days turned into weeks. The knocking became more frequent, more aggressive. It wasn't random anymore. It felt like something was trying to communicate. The haunting escalated. Furniture moved on its own. Objects flew across rooms. The family watched in terror as their home became a whirlwind of the unexplained. Then came the fires. Spontaneous fires erupted throughout the house. Beds, curtains, even clothing would ignite. The family was under constant threat. Esther was at the center of it all. The entity seemed fixated on her. She became a prisoner in her own home, tormented by the unseen force. The entity targeted Esther. It scratched her. It pulled her hair. Sometimes it spoke, its voice a chilling whisper. Esther was living a nightmare. She would be thrown from her bed in the dead of night. Invisible hands choked her, leaving marks on her throat. The torment was relentless. Sleep offered no escape. She was plagued by nightmares, visions of dark figures and malevolent eyes watching her every move. Section 5. Seeking Answers in the Darkness. Word spread of the haunted house in Amherst. People came from all over. Some were curious, others skeptical, but all were captivated by Esther's story. One visitor was Walter Hubble, a man determined to help. He witnessed the events firsthand. He saw the fear in Esther's eyes. He knew something was truly wrong. Hubble documented everything. He interviewed witnesses. He even tried to communicate with the entity. But the haunting continued. Section 6. A Town Divided. The haunting divided the town of Amherst. Some believed Esther. They saw the fear in her eyes, the bruises on her skin. They knew something dark had taken hold. The town was once a peaceful place where everyone knew each other, and life was simple. But now, it was a place of fear and suspicion. Esther Cox was at the center of it all. She was a young woman, full of life and dreams. But now she was a shadow of her former self. The bruises on her skin were not just physical, they were a manifestation of the terror she felt inside. Her eyes, once bright and full of hope, were now filled with fear and uncertainty. The townspeople who believed her were convinced that something supernatural was at play. They spoke of shadowy figures lurking in the corners, of strange noises in the night, and of an oppressive atmosphere that seemed to hang over the town like a dark cloud. They were afraid not just for Esther, but for themselves and their families. Others called her a liar. They said she was making it up, seeking attention. They refused to believe the impossible, even as the evidence mounted. They pointed fingers, whispered behind her back, and treated her with disdain. To them, Esther was nothing more than a troubled young woman looking for sympathy. The town was split down the middle. On one side were those who believed in the supernatural, who thought that Esther was cursed or possessed. On the other side were the skeptics, who believed that it was all an elaborate hoax. The debate raged on with no end in sight. Families were torn apart, friendships were broken, and the once tight-knit community was now a battleground of beliefs. The arguments grew more heated with each passing day. In the town square, people gathered to discuss and debate, their voices rising in anger and frustration. Some demanded that Esther be sent away, while others insisted that she needed help and protection. The tension was palpable, and it seemed that the town was on the brink of tearing itself apart. The truth remained elusive. Was Esther Cox truly cursed? Was she possessed by some dark force? Or was it all an elaborate hoax, a cry for attention from a troubled young woman? The mystery of Amherst would remain unsolved, a dark chapter in the town's history that would be remembered for generations to come. Section 7. Silence Falls. After months of terror, the haunting suddenly stopped. The once lively and bustling home had turned into a place of dread and fear. Every corner of the house echoed with the memories of the supernatural events that had unfolded. The walls, which had witnessed countless moments of joy, now stood as silent sentinels to the horrors that had transpired. The entity that had tormented Esther and her family vanished as quickly as it had arrived. It was as if a dark cloud had been lifted, allowing the first rays of hope to pierce through the gloom. The family, though relieved, was left in a state of shock and disbelief. They had endured so much, and now the sudden absence of the entity felt almost surreal. Life slowly returned to normal. The town, which had been gripped by fear and curiosity, began to move on. People returned to their daily routines, shops reopened, and the streets buzzed with activity once more. However, the story of Esther and her haunting became a part of the town's folklore, whispered in hushed tones and shared around campfires. Esther tried to rebuild her life, to forget the horrors she had endured. She sought solace in the mundane, hoping that the routine of daily life would help her heal, but every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind, brought back memories of the terror she had faced. She often found herself staring out of the window, lost in thought, wondering if the peace she now felt was real or just a temporary reprieve. But the scars, both physical and emotional, remained. Her hands bore the marks of her struggle, and her eyes reflected the pain she had endured. Every time she looked in the mirror, she was reminded of the nights filled with fear and the days of uncertainty. The haunting had left an indelible mark on her soul, one that no amount of time could erase. The haunting may have ended, but its impact on Esther was undeniable. She became a shadow of her former self, haunted by memories that refused to fade. The photographs from that time captured a woman who had faced unimaginable horrors and survived, but at a great cost. Her once bright and lively eyes now held a haunted expression, a testament to the ordeal she had endured. She carried the weight of her experience with her for the rest of her days. As she grew older, the memories of the haunting remained vivid. She often recounted her story to those who would listen, hoping that by sharing her experience, she could find some semblance of peace. But the sadness in her eyes never truly disappeared, a silent reminder of the darkness she had once faced. Section 8. The Ghost of Amherst. The story of Esther Cox became legend. In the late 19th century, the small town of Amherst, Nova Scotia, was thrust into the spotlight due to a series of bizarre and terrifying events that centered around a young woman named Esther Cox. Esther, who was in her late teens, began experiencing unexplainable phenomena in her home. Objects would move on their own, strange noises echoed through the halls, and Esther herself would often be found in a state of distress, claiming to have been attacked by unseen forces. The haunted house in Amherst stood as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most ordinary places. Was it real? The events that transpired in that house were documented by numerous witnesses, including family members, neighbors, and even local clergy. They all attested to the strange occurrences that seemed to follow Esther wherever she went. Despite numerous attempts to explain the phenomena, no one could provide a definitive answer. Some believed that Esther was possessed by a malevolent spirit, while others thought she was the victim of a cruel hoax. Was Esther truly the victim of a malevolent entity? Her story captured the imagination of the public, and soon newspapers from across the country were reporting on the Amherst mystery. Esther's plight became a topic of national conversation, with many people offering their own theories and explanations. Some suggested that Esther was suffering from a form of hysteria, a common diagnosis for women at the time. Others believed that she was a fraud, seeking attention and sympathy. But those who knew Esther best insisted that she was a kind and gentle soul, incapable of such deceit. Or was it all a figment of her imagination, a manifestation of a troubled mind? The questions linger. The mystery remains unsolved. To this day, the story of Esther Cox continues to be a source of fascination and debate. Paranormal investigators have visited the site of the old house, hoping to uncover new evidence that might shed light on the mystery. Some claim to have experienced strange sensations and sightings, while others dismiss the entire story as nothing more than a legend. But regardless of what one believes, the tale of Esther Cox serves as a reminder of the thin veil that separates the known from the unknown. But one thing is certain. The story of Esther Cox continues to fascinate and terrify, a stark reminder that some secrets refuse to stay buried. Her story has been passed down through generations, a chilling tale that has become part of the fabric of Amherst's history. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, the story of Esther Cox is a testament to the enduring power of the human imagination and the mysteries that lie just beyond our understanding.